Sahana vavatu sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamani Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nisha Charachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. We will chant from 5th verse. Mukhabhasako darpane drushyamanaha mukhatvat pruthaktvena naivasti vastu chidabhasako dhishu jivopi tadvate sanityopalabdhisvarupo hamatma yatha darpana bhava abhasahanau mukham vidyate kalpanahi namekam tatha dhiviyoge nirabhasako yah sanityopalabdhisvarupo hamatma manaschakshurader viyukta swayam yah manaschakshuradihi manaschakshuradeeragamyasvarupah sanityopalabdhisvarupo hamatma. Hastamalaka Charya is giving us several pointers by which we can abide in our own true nature. These are different prakriyas, different methods that if somebody can appreciate how to shift attention to my higher nature, then that sadhaka can benefit from this prakriya. And while we are doing our work, while we are living our lives, making sure that this method also is available to me, and time and again I make use of that method. So one such method was in the 5th verse, where mirror example was pointed. That you look in the mirror, you see a reflection there. But that doesn't mean there are two things. So looking at my reflection, I can still shift my attention to the original. We saw several parallels also between the mirror example and what Bhagavan wants to point out over here. One of the things about this mirror example is the reflection which is there in the mirror, it has attributes of original, meaning the face only is getting reflected there, but it is also getting some attributes from the mirror. For example, if mirror is two-dimensional, the reflection is also two-dimensional. while the original is not. Right? So what is happening there? The reflection is getting part of it from the original and part of it from the medium in which it is getting reflected. Over here also, between chit and chidabhasa. Chit means pure consciousness, like the face which is there, that is represented by pure consciousness. And reflection of that face, just like you have mukha abhasa, over here we have chit abhasa, and that is called as chidabhasa. So now that chidabhasa has part of its attributes from Atma and part of it from the medium in which it is reflecting. So what is that part which comes from Atma? Ability to illumine, ability to know. Chidabhasa means, don't think we are talking about something else. We are talking about this ahankara. This person whom I call as so and so with my name, that individual is called as chidabhasa. Jiva means chidabhasa only you can take. So this reflected consciousness has ability to illumine which comes from Atma. But at the same time, because of the conditioning, it feels finite. Pure consciousness by itself is infinite. It is not bound by one intellect. But because conditioning has come, so that attribute of the conditioning has come to this chidabhasa now. Okay, so whenever we see reflection, it is said both things will be there. From the original also will be there, and from reflection also will be there. Sadhana is not to get stuck with the conditioning part. Like, I see the reflection as two-dimensional. In my knowledge, I should know that even if this is two-dimensional, the original is three-dimensional. So Chaitanya, the reflected consciousness, even though it looks finite, even though it looks flickering, it looks like when I go to sleep, this chidabhasa has disappeared. So we say it is happening only in the reflection, but the original is nitya, upalabdhi swarupa, atma. Jnana sadhana will be like this. I cannot insist that one day I will experience Atman, which is nitya, which is upalabdhi swarupa, which is ever present. So you cannot experience it because it is the experiencer. Right? It will never become an object in that way. So this is how I have to shift my attention. Look at the limitations, acknowledge the limitations, and understand it belongs to the reflection, not to me, the original. So chit and chidabhasa we are familiar with. Now we can also think about sat and sat abhasa. This word we might not have heard before. Just like you have consciousness and reflection of consciousness, we also have existence and as though reflected existence. Sat and sat abhasa. Now what does sat abhasa look like? Sat abhasa is what we call as jagat. All the objects that we are seeing, everything which is pointed out as idam. In Chandogya it was said in this way, whatever is pointed out as idam. Whatever has a name and form, all of that is conditioned existence. Sat abhasa. Now if you notice very closely, even in objects of this world, there is part of the thing coming from Atma and part of it coming from Anatma. Okay? It's a little subtle, but I hope all of you are with me. You take any object. We say that object is inert, right? Now, where does that inertness come from? Does it come from Maya or does it come from consciousness? We say it cannot come from consciousness, it is from Maya aspect. What we saw in creation process, from the tamasic aspect of Maya, this entire gross creation has come about. But I know that object to be existing, right? It is not a non-existent thing. I see this object right in front. It is an existent entity. Where did that existence come from? We say that existence came from Chaitanya. That Atman, Brahman, whose nature is existence, all objects of this creation are appearing in that. They are borrowing their existence from Atma. But both will look mixed up. Existence part and jadata, inertness part, they will appear mixed up. Over here also, sadhana is the same, not to physically separate it. We cannot. It is only to understand that every object that I see in this creation, its existence is coming from Atma, and whatever name and form it has, which is related to its inertness, that is from Maya. Okay, so from Sat Abhasa, I can shift attention to Sat. Just like I did from Chit Abhasa, I shifted attention to Chit. If you remember, this was the method given in Drugdrishya Viveka for meditating with eyes open. What did Vidyaranya Swamiji says? Asti bhati priyam nama rupam. There are 5 things which are there in this transactional world. Whatever object I see, these 5 things should come in my mind. But he said the first 3, Asti bhati priyam, means Sat, Chit, Ananda, belongs to Brahman, and the name and form belongs to the world. So if somebody can do this viveka between Atma and the part which is coming from Anatma, that sadhaka will be able to keep their mind in this knowledge all the time. Okay, Sat and Sat Abhasa. Between Jadata, inertness, which belongs to the medium, and existence, which belongs to Chaitanya. We saw Sat Abhasa, we saw Chit Abhasa. What remains now? Ananda Abhasa. Just like you had Sat Abhasa, Chit Abhasa, Ananda also, there is Abhasa. Where does Ananda Abhasa happen? Ananda Abhasa happens in mind. Even just like chidabhasa also happened here only, right? In buddhi. Ananda Abhasa also happens in mind. Meaning what? Vedanta is not saying that, we should not strive for Laukika Ananda, or we should have some kind of aversion towards it. Of course, Sattvic Ananda. The point is, even in that Ananda, understanding that the original source of Ananda is Atma only. The reflection which is there will have limitations. Acknowledging that limitations and shifting attention to original. One is called as Atma Ananda, right? Which is Atma Swarupa. Infinitude itself is Ananda. Then which is this other Ananda? What does Ananda Abhasa look like? It's all other Ananda which we experience at mind level. A calm mind, or that Ananda even which we get when we get some Vishaya. Where is that Ananda experienced? It is said in mind only. But you see now the limitations of that Ananda. In Atmananda, there is no coming going. But in this Ananda Abhasa, the reflected Ananda, there is, one time there is Ananda, and at another time there is some other vritti. So Vedanta student has got very clear perspective even towards that Ananda. He says, if it comes, let it come. I'm not going to struggle too much for that Ananda. If I can just have a calm mind, my own Swarupa is Ananda, which is available also as Vritti Ananda. Vritti Ananda means reflected joy in this own mind. He finds that method better than seeking that quiet mind through Vishaya. Right? What Vishayas do is also the same. It just quietens that desire which is there, and Ananda gets reflected in that mind. But there is coming and going of that Ananda. So while looking at that Ananda, one is able to shift attention to Atma Ananda. And there are several other limitations also. We must have seen in our own experience that we feel the gradation of joy received from different objects is different. We say the Ananda that we get from coffee is different from Ananda of watching a movie. It is different from going hiking. All of them are Ananda Abhasa, reflected joy, but there is a gradation. We feel one is greater, another is smaller than the previous one. But Atmananda, there is no gradation. Okay. So what are we trying to point out here? Between the original and reflection, there will be differences. Just like in the mirror image and the original, there will be differences. We can look at the reflection and shift attention to original. So these three, if we can reflect upon, we will realize our whole day can be spent in reflecting about Vedanta. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramantah. Who is this yogi? He revels in statement of Vedanta all the time. When he sees the world, he sees it as Sat and Sat Abhasa. When he turns within, sees his own mind, recognizes chidabhasa, shifts to chit. Lot of other sadhanas are done, mind is calm, Ananda Abhasa is happening, shifts attention to Ananda. This was just another way of looking at the fifth verse. Mukhabhasako darpane drushyamana. We saw the parallels in the last class between the mirror example and over here, but Sat Abhasa, Chit Abhasa and Ananda Abhasa also we can look at it. Then in the sixth verse, Hastamalaka Charyaji said, we are not interested in destroying the conditionings. Vedanta just wants to tell us that these conditionings are unreal. Right? And when we define ourselves as Aham, Vedanta says you are absolutely free. True independence. If we want, Vedanta says, don't even take yourself as this mind. Body is the next one, and this creation outside. In understanding, in Vyavahara, all emotions are in the same place, wherever it has to be, and they are not conflicting each other. So Vyavaharik Aham is transactional I. It will still go on as it is. But before we came to Vedanta, we thought that was the only I. Transactional I was the only Aham that we were familiar with. Hastamalaka Charyaji is showing us that other Aham. The true Aham, which is our nature. He says, if you can, hold on to it. It takes a long journey, several janmas, to come to even question this Aham. But if somebody can really walk this path, peel the layers. However, Bhagavan Shankaracharya said, right? Munjadi Shikam in Atma Bodha, he said. Panchakoshas, which are there, they are like the layers which are covering this Atman. Let go of them one by one, and then abide in our own true nature as pure consciousness. Then seventh verse said, I am different from this assemblage. different from this assemblage of body, mind, and everything. At the same time, I am their prompter. Second line, Manaschakshurader, Manaschakshuradihi, Shrotrasya Shrotram. I am their prompter. At the same time, I am that which cannot be reached through mind, cannot be reached through speech, and all other sense organs. Okay. Now the student is asking, that last line he paid more attention to. He says, Manaschakshurader agamya swarupa. He says, everything that I have known in this world is through mind, is through my sense organs. And you are saying that Atma cannot be known through mind, cannot be known through sense organ. Then how will I even know whether it exists or not? Would it not become completely asat, like horns of a rabbit? Shasha Vishanavat, that example is given. Won't it become like another non-existent thing? How am I going to know that there is something called as consciousness, there is something called as Atma? To answer that question is the 8th verse. Ya eko vibhati swatah shuddha chetaha. Ya eko vibhati swatah shuddha chetaha. Prakashaswarupopi nanevadhishu. Prakashaswarupopi nanevadhishu. Sharavodakastho yatha bhanurekah. Sharavodakastho yatha bhanurekah. Sanityopalabdhiswarupo hamatma. Sanityopalabdhiswarupo hamatma. If you see our Puja Swamiji's book, Puja Swami Purushottam Swamiji has given Anvaya also. When he explains the word by word meaning, it is not in the order of the shloka, but it is in the order in which it will connect with the next verse. So that is called as Anvaya. But we will just see the words directly. Ya ekaha vibhati swatah shuddha chetaha. Atman is that one non-dual reality which doesn't need anything else to be known. Why? Because it is Swatah Siddha. Swatah Siddha means it has its own light of effulgence. And we are not talking about some Eka Atma, we are talking about Aham. Because this Chaitanya is not different from me, it is ever known as I. So the teacher is telling the student, don't have this doubt that how are you going to know Atma? You are Atma, it is ever illumined, it is ever shining. All you have to do is let go of Anatma. Don't struggle or don't have this doubt that how am I going to know Atma? Through what means am I going to know it? It is Swatah Siddha. Swatah Vibhati means it is self-shining. To whom will it be known? It will be known to those who have a pure mind. Shuddha chetaha ekaha swatah vibhati. To those people who have a pure mind, this Atma Chaitanya will get revealed to them. We'll come to these words. Let us just see the literal meaning. Prakasha swarupah api naneva dhishu. Now this is the main point which is being explained. Example we should see first in the 3rd line. Yatha ekaha bhanuhu sharava udakastaha. Just like that one sun, without becoming many, appears as many in the different pots with water. In the same way, Prakasha Swarupah api, 2nd line, Prakasha Swarupah api naneva dhishu vibhati. That Atman which is non-dual, which is self-effulgent, one without the second, that Atman reflects in many intellects without actually becoming many. Example is given of the sun again. Sun reflects in many conditionings without actually becoming many. Hastamalaka Charya, I think, was very fond of this example. Almost every shloka, every other shloka has sun and reflection example. But also for a Vedanta sadhaka, it is to pay attention to the differences, what he is pointing out through the same example in every verse. Example can be the same. What is pointed out through that example is different. So we should not feel he's repeating his example. So there are so many layers of thinking that are done after every shloka, on every shloka, to figure out what is the similarity between the example. So over here it is that sun is self-shining, right? You don't have to put forth effort to know the sun. In the light of sun alone, all other objects are known. So that is the first similarity. Atman is self-shining. You don't have to do anything to know Atma. Means these are doubts that might come to a sadhaka. That you said, Atman is not known through mind, not known through sense organs. Then I don't know whether it is there or not. So Vedanta says this Atman is one unique thing. It is unlike objects of the world. It is not different from you. It is you yourself. So don't search for it outside. Don't even think, how will it be known? Right? Whatever speaking is happening, he says it is happening because of Atma. Whatever listening is happening, happens because of Atma. In Kenopanishad, we will see this. There is one Shruti quotation given from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where that Shruti mantra says, Vadan Vak. What is that Atman? Vadan Vak. But if you go to that Upanishad mantra, there it is said, this consciousness appears in our physical body through different abilities. Right? Like ability to hear, ability to see. And human beings get so busy with each of these abilities that they don't come behind these abilities. We feel that my eyes are seeing, that ability belongs to the eyes. Ears are listening, that ability belongs to ear. Means we have seen different abilities as different things. But that Upanishad mantra says, just go behind those abilities. It is that one Chaitanya alone which is illumining everything. So if you are able to speak, that itself shows that this Swatah Siddha Atma is present over there. I am able to hear, that itself shows Swatah Siddha Atma is present there. This in Drigdirsha Viveka also we saw it. If I am seeing an object, I don't need another proof whether my eyes are open or not, or whether eyes are there or not. I don't need a proof because I'm seeing an object, that itself is indicator. Now, what is the difference between knowing objects of the world and knowing Atma? Okay, that first line is that indicator. Ya ekaha vibhati swataha. Objects of the world are not swata vibhati. For example, if you want to know something in this room, how many things do I need? Right? That object is not self-illuminating. First, I need light. Appropriate conditions are needed outside. Then I need my sense organs. My physical eyes are needed to see that. Even after that, I need a thought of that object. But even after that, this thought has to be illumined by that consciousness. Okay, so objects of the world, if you remember, Pratyaksha Pramana when we saw, Pramata Avachinna Chaitanya, Prameya Avachinna Chaitanya, and Pramana Avachinna Chaitanya, they have to come together. Don't worry, Sanskritam word, if you don't recollect what it is. What it means is, it is not only object being there have to be conditionings, means different conditions suitable. Eyes have to be there and thought has to be there. Now, through that, objects of the world are known. So that is called as parataha siddha, not swatah siddha. Parata means it depends on so many other things. If you remove one, then that object will not be known. Eyes are open, light is there, thought is not there. It happens to us all the time, right? Object which is right in front, you say, why did I not see it? Because thought was not there. Thought is there, our mind is available, eyes are there, light is not there. Then also, object is not seen. So which depends on so many other factors to become known, that thing is called as parataha siddha. But Atma is Swatah Siddha. So for knowing Atma, I don't need outside light. For knowing Aham, even if eyes are closed, lights are off, even in pitch dark, I still know I am. I don't need my physical eyes to see Atma. Now the most important thing, I also don't need a thought. See, you said brahmakara vriti. Brahmakara vritti was not to reveal Atma. Brahmakara vritti was to remove anatma. That is all that this vritti has done. Okay? To know Atma, I don't need a thought. I don't need my sense organs. I also don't need physical light. Okay, all Shastra vrittis, all other thoughts which we are gathering from scriptures, they are not to reveal Atma in that sense. They are only to know that I was always of the nature of Atma, thinking myself to be something else, either this mind, body, or some other role that I took upon myself. Now, what is the meaning of the word Shuddha Chetaha? What does the first line say? Yaha ekaha vibhati swataha Shuddha Chetaha. This Atman reveals, is recognized as self-shining to those who have a pure mind. In this context, Shuddha Chetaha has a very specific meaning. And that is, purity of mind is reflected in the way that this sadhaka can inquire about Aham. What our Raman Maharshiji pointed out in Upadesha Sara, right? Manasam tu kim margane krute naiva manasam marga arjavat. But the important thing is, somebody should get a question, what is this mind? Or, what is this Aham? I am doing so many things in my life, so many roles I have taken in my life. But have I asked this question, who I really am? Simple answer, for the purpose for which I am doing everything, is for happiness. But if you inquire into this Aham, does that Aham really need to be happy? We say happiness is its nature. It doesn't have to become happy. This Atma is Ananda Swarupa to begin with. The point is, somebody who is able to keep all the three tapas aside. Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika. Tapa means ups and downs, which comes from our own mind, from the surrounding, or from phenomenal forces. They will keep coming. There is never a time it is going to, become fully solved or resolved. They are like waves in the ocean. They'll keep coming. So this sadhaka, Shuddha Chetaha, is the one. Amidst all of that, he wants to swim in that ocean now. Swimming in that ocean means what? Asking this question, who am I? Vedanta journey begins with a question. And there was one Mahatma Ji, his name was Ram Kinkarji Maharaj. His style of pravachan was very different in Ramayana. He would ask the organizers which chaupai he used to speak on. If they give a chaupai, one chaupai he will speak for 7 days. Not like how we do, different chaupais, chanting and all. Only one chaupai he will take, speak for 7 days. If they don't give chaupai, he would just open Ramayana book. Whichever chaupai comes, on that he will speak for 7 days. And his bhava was, Bhagavan has chosen the chaupai for me. He used to say that every sadhaka should become a questioner. And he would say that Bhagavan has shown in his Leela that one should question, keep questioning. Like Bhagavan goes to Ahilyaji's ashram. Now Bhagavan is Sarvajna. He knows everything. But he asked Vishwamitra Rishi, who is this? Why is this ashram so quiet? He says, question. Now with that question, Vishwamitra Rishi gives very beautiful answers. Then he goes a little ahead, he meets other people, like our Sugriva. Now Bhagavan is asking Sugriva, oh Sugriva, tell me, how come you are staying in this mountain? Now Bhagavan is Sarvajna, he doesn't have to ask him actually. Right? Why are you staying here? Later, when he fights Ravana, he's saying this Ravana is not falling down. He asks Vibhishana, oh Vibhishana, how come Ravana is not falling down? Give me some solution. So his point was that Bhagavan through his Leelas is trying to tell sadhakas that don't be very happy if you don't get questions. And he would say, just like if somebody doesn't feel hungry, we don't feel happy, right? That, oh, I'm not feeling hungry now. I will not have to cook. I will not have to do anything else. It is all very nice. He said, no. We immediately go to a doctor, get medicine. And when we start feeling hunger, naturally, we say, oh, okay, now I'm good. He says, getting questions about Aham is like that. Means encouraging sadhakas to keep questioning, and it is only a matter of time when the question becomes sincere, answer appeals a lot more. Why did we do this discussion? Shuddha chetaha. In this context, to know Atma as self-shining, this seeker should have a question, what is the nature of Aham? Then that answer is, it is self-shining, it is always there. Now Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji has written a beautiful commentary on this particular mantra. I will just bring some key points, whichever he has written. We won't read the bhasya per se. These pointers are such that we will not get anywhere else. Very, very precise and very unique. There is one opponent who says, if somebody has understood nature of Atma in this way, you said that person is Jivan Mukta. Knows that I am this Chaitanya, I alone am appearing as this entire creation, I am the one illumining all intellects. If somebody can know it in this way, he said that person is Jivan Mukta, freed from all sorrows. Pretyasmat lokat amrutaha bhavanti. Kenopanishad we saw. So that opponent says, such Jivan Mukti is never possible. He says, why? Because he has a couple of pointers. He says, as long as body is there, experiences will keep coming. As long as Sharira is there, you cannot say that I will be away from experiences. So if experiences are there, joys and sorrow are also there. Afflictions which come from them, elation which comes from them, all of them will be there even for that Jivan Mukta. He says, where is Jivan Mukti then? He is like any ordinary person. What did your knowledge do? That is his question. Before knowledge also experiences came. After knowledge also experiences are coming. He says, I know what you are going to say. He tells Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji. You will say that all of this is recognized as mithya. And in that way, Jivan Mukta lives in this world with mithya, knowledge. So he asks, you cannot say that also. Say why? Because in mithya vastu, there is no vyavahara possible. Vyavahara means transactions. Example he gives, if you put a finger on your eye, one moon appears as two. That second moon is mithya, right? After knowing that moon is mithya, you say, I want to go to that moon now. You see how absurd it looks? Mithya vastu, you cannot do transaction with. So how are you saying that this jnani is doing vyavahara also and jnani is Jivan Mukta also? Janak Maharaj did so many things. He is saying all these things to Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji. Janak Maharaj has so many kingdom and everything. How are you saying that he was a Jivan Mukta? He was like any ordinary person. And Bhagavan Shankaracharya's answer is also very humorous. He says, first of all, you read Upanishads thoroughly. He tells that opponent. All sadhanas which are given are for living person only. Okay, not otherwise. Only a living person can do sadhana. Only a living person will get knowledge, not otherwise. And he says, mukti also, why are you saying living person cannot get? Okay, he says, Upanishads say all results which are accrued in terms of Upanishad results also. The one who gets this rejoices in the supreme bliss. All of those results, that bliss who will revel in? Living person only. This is why are you saying that Jivan Mukti is not possible while being in this body? And then he says, don't mix up vyavahara and paramartha. Just because somebody is doing vyavahara does not mean that it is absolutely real. In fact, only that thing which is unreal, with that thing only you can do vyavahara. Because it is perceived, because it is mithya, because it is nama rupa, name and form, only with that you can do transaction, not with paramartha sat. An example he gives, clay and pot, right? Clay is real, pot is unreal. Pot is only a word. Vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam. It is only a word, it is only a form, a name and a form given to that substance called as clay. There are no two things there, right? There is no clay and another thing called as pot. You touch anywhere, you will find only clay. So there he says, just because you have known that this is clay and not a pot, doesn't mean you cannot fill water in it. Right? So vyavahara is not indicator of reality. You can still fill the water, quench your thirst, do whatever you want. And that vyavahara, you cannot do it with clay. You need nama rupa for vyavahara. So this jnani is awake. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyam. That jnani is awake in this world of nama rupa because his knowledge is very, very firm. Okay. So very nice dialogue between Shankaracharya ji Now he makes another very bold statement. Listen to this carefully. Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, knowledge does not produce moksha. Knowledge does not give moksha. Why? Because he says moksha is your swarupa. Jnanam, it does not produce moksha. Moksha is your swarupa. But I thought karma does not give moksha. Jnanam gives moksha. He says Jnanam also does not give moksha in the way that we conventionally think. What is the conventional thinking? That I was bound, and at some point knowledge came. After that, I'll be liberated. So Bhagavan says no. Bound is okay. A point comes. But when knowledge takes place, it is in this way that I was ever liberated. Even before, when I thought myself to be this conditioned physical body, mind, I took on the attributes of this mind. Even at that time, I was unaffected by these conditionings. What to talk about later. So he says Jnanam is like that. All it does is removes erroneous notions. It does not produce moksha. Does not produce Atma, of course we know that. But even liberation, that Jnani will not put a date and say, on this day, at this time, I got moksha. Time and space are constructs of the mind. They are appearances in consciousness. We should not take them as real and try to define ourselves in them. Brahma Jyanam defining in time and space. Location also people say, right? Under this tree, under this place. You ask that jnani will not say, I got liberation here. Because body was sitting there. Knowledge is, I was ever free. What is the example? He says, sunlight which comes, it just removes darkness. Now this is a different example. Don't connect with previous one. Sun example is used in several ways. But what is the point he is trying to say? That when sun rises, it removes darkness. Objects which are there are known as they are. So sunlight did not come and create that object. It was ever there. All that it did was remove ignorance. In the same way, Brahma Jyanam, which came, it did not create Atma or give liberation. It just removed erroneous notions from Swatah Siddha, Aham. Swatah Siddha word you are familiar with now from the verse. And now he gives a very beautiful example, which at least I have not seen anywhere else. This example is to show that even after Brahma Jyanam, how does this body continue? Because you said ignorance is removed, right? And this body is result of ignorance. From avidya came kama, from kama came karma. Because of karma, we had to do karma phala, bhoga, and for this body was given. So how come this body remains even after Tattva Jnanam? So same example he takes and says, when the sun rises, the major darkness which is there all around, that darkness is removed. But if you have an umbrella open and the shadow which is falling there, that darkness is not removed by the sun. Okay, pay attention to the example. He says sun removes all darkness, but if you have an umbrella which is open, that little part of darkness which is there, it will go away only when you close the umbrella. So he says this physical body also is like that for a jnani. That is, transactions are happening in the light of this knowledge. Tattva Jnanam has come. It has removed all erroneous notions in that jnani. But this body is continuing so long as that umbrella is open. So Jivan mukti is also there. And when this umbrella closes, there is videha mukti also. Oh, we are already at 7:20. Sorry to go over. I didn't pay attention to the time. So now there are a few more verses. In the next session, we will conclude. All different pointers, turning attention to Atma. So whatever we saw today, you can reflect on it once again. Sat Abhasa, Chit Abhasa, Ananda Abhasa, and this portion of Swatah Siddha. Just sitting down quietly and eliminating all other ideas from I. All limitations, all finitude from Aham. And then see whether Raman Maharshi and Hastamalaka Charya are telling something which we can see for ourselves. Raman Maharshi also said, right? Aham taya spurati hrit swayam. That this Aham will shine forth by itself. You don't have to do anything. Only thing we have to do is Aham inasha. Negate that ahankara. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Harihi Om. In the Darpan example, it looks like there are two things. Original and mirror, both are real. Should this be considered as limitation of the example? Well, limitation is not necessarily in the fact that there are two things. If there were two, then we would do two separate things for both of them. Like we saw last class, right? If you have to apply chandanam, you don't apply here and again go and apply there. If there were two real entities, then you would do that. Right? The limitation of this example is reflection is happening in a different place than the original. I mean, there is space which is there in between the reflection and the original. That is the limitation of this example. In case of Atma and chidabhasa, Chit and chidabhasa, it is not that Chit is somewhere and the reflection is happening somewhere else. Although graphically when we present it in that way. Right? Like you might have seen in Drigdrisha Viveka, sun is there and reflection is happening in the intellect. This is not in that way. Atma is all pervading. In Atma, this reflection is happening. So limitation is that there is a desha vyavadhana. Space is there in between the reflection and the original, unlike in the case of Chit and Chidabhasa. Okay. We cannot drink mirage water. This appears to be an example of not being able to transact with mithya. That is true. Every example will be used for a specific reason. Meaning over there, we should say, one should not go towards mirage water with satyatva buddhi. Rather than trying to prove that it is not possible to transact over there, that is true. But in case of jnani, if you want to apply mirage water example, that jnani will understand that I was ever unaffected by these thoughts and these conditionings, just like that sand was ever unaffected by the mirage water. So that similarity we can use. In the umbrella example, does it mean that videha mukti happens when all prarabdha ends? Is that the same meaning as closing the umbrella? Yes, that is the same meaning. So Bhagavan says that little effect of avidya, which is as though appearing, like that little patch of darkness, that is like this sharira for a jnani. It will go away when prarabdha karma is done. Can you explain how to think about Ananda Abhasa while going about the day? Ananda Abhasa becomes little difficult than other two Abhasa. You know why? Because other two Abhasas are naturally available. Right? Sat Abhasa, we don't have to do anything. Sat, objects are already there. We just have to shift attention from Nama Rupa to Sat. Same with chidabhasa. Chaitanya is getting reflected, shift attention. But the tricky part with Ananda is, even to get Ananda Abhasa is difficult. This is what Bhagavan Krishna has been telling us in Bhagavad Gita, right? Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyeschcharan atma vaishyehi vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. Prasadam means manaprasada. And that manaprasada in that verse is Ananda Abhasa. Reflected Ananda in this mind. So the first step for a sadhaka is to come to that level. What sadhana should I do? Bhagavan says, keep doing all sadhanas. But the main sadhana which will help us is bringing about more sattva in our personality. So that whole verse is about that same concept. What we saw is making sure preferences don't take over in our vyavahara. Vyavaharu nama shabdocharanam. Speech, everything is very well regulated, very well controlled. What is the result of that? Ananda Abhasa. Now in that Ananda Abhasa, sadhaka can say, this Ananda is my nature only. Or another way is Drigdrishya Viveka method. There, Vidyaranyaji was very forgiving. What did he say? He said, in your mind, always Ananda is not going to be there. That is why all types of vrittis he put in there. Kamadhyaha chittaga drishyaha tat sakshitvena chetanam. Kamadhyaha means kama, krodha, lobha, moha. All those are vritti abhasas they are. Or vrittis only you call. You don't have to call them vritti abhasa. Vritti itself is abhasa. In different thoughts they are. If I can distance myself from those thoughts, so that witness of that thought is Ananda Swarupa Brahma. The only catch there is, this thought is not necessarily thought of Ananda. The reflected thought, it is having some other Vishaya. So that is another method. The sweeter one is the first one. Doing sadhana, having that cheerful mind, at the same time having this knowledge that this Ananda, no matter how great it is going to be there at some time, not be there at some time, but most importantly, it is my Swarupa. Okay. If you want that perspective, we can look at it that way. In the verse, you said that we need light and other faculties to see objects of the world. So there is a seer. Now for seeing the Atman, who is seeing? So Swatah Siddha is to remove that doubt. That to see Atman, you don't need anybody else to see. Right? Atman is that only unique thing which is self-shining, which is recognized as Aham. If you say there is somebody else, you say Atma is of the nature of existence, consciousness, and there is somebody else who is going to see this Atman. Now that somebody has to be different from this Atman, right? Because seer has to be different from seen. Hypothetical situation. There is another entity, let us say, which is going to see this Atmana. So that entity has to be different from the seen Atma. So if Atma is nature of existence, what has to be nature of that other entity? non-existence. If Atma is Chaitanya of the nature of consciousness, what will be the nature of other entity? Jada. So how will some entity exist, even hypothetically, which is Jada, non-existence, and is going to come and know Atma? Raman Maharshi's verse, I'm not saying anything different. Sattva bhasika chitkva vetara. How can there be another entity which will come and know this Atma? Sattaya hi chit, chittaya hyaham. That Sat alone is Chit, and that Chit alone I am. So to know Atma, I don't have to do anything. Or to experience Atma, I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is do clear Shravanam and remove erroneous notions from this Atma. Okay. There is another question about Ananda Abhasa, like following Karma Siddhanta. That also will give some kind of Ananda. Is this not the way to get Ananda? That is a very sattvic sadhana way to get Ananda. By having a lot of conviction in Karma Siddhanta and everything. Means what it will do is it will remove anxieties from our mind. Right? If somebody has thorough conviction in Karma Siddhanta, that if I have done my duty well, Bhagavan will make sure that the result will come to me. I don't have to struggle too much. So that will give a quieter mind, peaceful mind. But Bhagavan himself says this Ananda is agantuka. And today one anxiety got solved, tomorrow something else will come. And this has been going on for several janmas, he says. So best way is abide in Ananda Swarupa and have all other supports also. Karma Siddhanta is also there. Bhakti is also there. All supports are in their own place. Okay. Okay, there is one more which we will take in the next session. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.